In today's episode, we are joined by the dynamic quantum duo, Drs. Amit Goswami and Valentina Onisor. Tune in as we break down how emotions and improper mental thinking lead to disease, the power of archetypes in the healing process, the path to higher states of consciousness, and what is necessary to create a life of joy and meaning. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. And I am super excited to have you all join us for our new series that is kickstarting off today on energy, frequency, vibration, and magnetics, the next era of healthcare. So I'm super excited myself for this for this episode as well as for this entire series, because this is an area that I've been really keenly interested in for some time now. So I'm always looking forward to the next episodes and the interviews that I'm going to have, because it just constantly keeps filling me up with all of the information that I'm wanting to understand and integrate and really pull together. I've got lots of different pieces of it, and then I love having these conversations, just pull it all together, and then ultimately share that with all of you guys so you get a broader perspective of what's really entailed in health, and even well beyond health. I mean, this is really at the core of how we construct and create a life that is meaningful for us all and that we really enjoy and want to live. So, a couple of announcements first. So, if you haven't noticed already, that episodes are being moved from being released on Mondays to being released on Wednesdays. So, I think that is going to be the new time that we are going to be releasing episodes. Is going to be on Wednesdays from now on. Works a little bit better with my schedule and with Taya's schedule, as well as with the media team. So just look for our new episodes are going to be released every Wednesdays now. And a couple things around the new series. So we are going to talk into a lot of different aspects of healthcare, and we've got some really phenomenal guests. So some people that maybe if you haven't seen it yet, go and take a look at the poster that's posted up on all the social media platforms so you can see the different guests that we've got. We are also still waiting to hear back from a few other ones that I think are just going to be mind-blowing if we can get that in. And one guest we're even hoping to get into around the whole thing around med beds and what that is and how they work, and even if they are available. So stay tuned on that. We just found that information out yesterday. So we're hoping that we can connect with that and share that information with you. But we're bringing back some other people like Lee Carroll, who's the voice of Cryon, with Monica Mariani. And they're always such a well-received guest. And I love the information that they share. It's always very insightful. And they talk very much around DNA activation. And I want to really dive into that and what that means and how we can utilize that to facilitate health and healing. We're going to bring back Dr. Todd Ovakadis again. Wealth of information. One of the most knowledgeable people I know. Also the founder of Pineal Tones. We're going to get him to break down all of these concepts and what that means. We're going to bring on Jonathan Goldman and his wife, Andy Goldman. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They've written a number of books on sound healing. He's a composer, and he and his wife run retreats and work specifically around using sound to heal. So this is a big area of information and a huge area of this world of sound, light, vibration, frequency medicine. I want to talk to JJ Hertek and his wife too, and that's really fascinating. He's written a number of books. One of the first ones that I got into at one point was The Keys of Enoch, and just downloads a ton of different information. And he's a brilliant, brilliant fellow. But I think he's going to really bring some information like too around sound and light and how that all works. So a lot of really fun guests that are going to come up over this series. So make sure you stay tuned, check them out. If you got any questions or comments, let us know. Any questions that you specifically have that you want to know answers to for any of these guests, write them in. Check out the guests and send me questions. And if I can incorporate those questions when I'm interviewing, I'm happy to try and bring that in and see if we can round this conversation as much as possible. Now, this series is all around looking at these more abstract levels of health. So we're looking at, vibration, frequency. This goes into the worlds of vital body and mental body and supermental, spiritual body, all of these different aspects of health that all filter down and affect the physical. But that doesn't mean that we don't still address the physical, right? We are still in this body, and as much as we are not this body, we are still in this body having a very physical experience. So that means we still need to take very good care of our physical body. So Part of this means, proper nutrition, looking after ourselves, making sure that all of our cellular functions are working properly, that we're detoxifying properly. So if you didn't see our previous episode, Beyond Detox, with Lance Shuttler and Noah Olson, the founders of Ascent Nutrition, go and check it out. They break down some really important information on some of the big important supplements that people can utilize to support cellular detoxification, to support overall health and wellness for the body. And one of the main products that helps with that is their Peak Liver Detox. So take a look at that. The link is below. You can click on that, or you can go to the website and just scroll down and you will see Ascent Nutrition there. You can click on that and they'll give you 10% off your order. The Liver Detox is a really important product. Not only does it contain all of the main ingredients that you need to support natural glutathione production in the body, which is our inner process that is the primary process that scavenges free radicals, really important for detoxification and overall health and longevity. It also has this core constituent called solar plast, which is literally loaded with biophotons. And this is really interesting because it ties very much into this idea of frequency vibration-based medicine. What you will learn as we have different conversations is that light is information. And when we can actually bring in light in many different ways, some of that ways comes directly through quality sourced plants. And so when we can actually bring in the biophotons that are actually loaded within the chloroplast, that's another way of getting information into the body. So click the link below or on the website and get 10% off your order. Just make sure you use the coupon code DRLOKEN. All of that's on the website. The other thing that's really important about managing and taking care of our physical body is C60. Carbon 60 is that incredibly potent free radical scavenger, the most powerful antioxidant that we know about. So that's an important one that you can incorporate. I think one of the most important things is that it can help to optimize mitochondrial function. We are so much information around mitochondrial disease that is a cornerstone again for so many problems, not just ones like we think about with things like dementia and Alzheimer's or Parkinson's or some of these things, but for just all around health. Mitochondria is that energy center of the cell. And when that goes down, nothing feels right. So I have found personally that C60 can be one of the more powerful adjuncts to an overall healthy lifestyle to really support mitochondrial function. So again, check them out. Links below or on the website. Click the link and use the promo code DRLOKEN for 15% off your order. Now, in this specific episode, we talked to Dr. Amit Goswami and Valentina Onisor. And if you haven't checked it out before, check the link below too. I'll put for Dr. Amit Goswami's episode that we did back in the Mind Body series. And he's been one of my favorite authors for a while now. He's been one of my main teachers in the PhD program I'm doing in quantum integrative medicine. He's fascinating. I think he's brilliant, and he's just a really wonderful fellow. So I first came across his work when I watched a documentary called What the Bleep Do We Know? And if nobody's seen that, I highly recommend to go and check it out. It was one of the first movies, documentaries that I saw that really explained how when we start to understand this world of quantum physics, how literally everything that we know gets flipped upside down. And it opens up a whole new way of looking at the world and looking at health. So Dr. Amit Goswami then met up with Dr. Valentina Onisor, who's a medical doctor, brilliant lady. She's incorporated a ton of the concepts of quantum medicine and integrated that into her practice. And she's such a beautiful soul. And so they both joined us today, and we had a really phenomenal conversation. We get into a lot of different pieces of this concept of vibration, frequency, but we use it very much in the terms of consciousness or quantum creativity as they speak about it. So we're going to look at things like understanding the power of meaning as a catalyst for one's health. Why is meaning so incredibly powerful and transformative for people when they really embody it? And you probably even feel that. You know how life changes when you have a strong sense of purpose or a strong meaning in your life. And you also can see how health deteriorates when that sense of meaning is lost. And so how do we get that back? So we talk about that. We talk about the all-important role that consciousness plays in facilitating healing. Consciousness is literally the grounds for expansion. It's the grounds for everything. And so we talk about how we transition through these different fields of consciousness and how we can use those in how they manifest changes in our lives. Specifically, we talk about what a quantum integrative system of medicine looks like and how that can significantly upgrade our current outdated system of medicine. Discover how to regain your power to choose. We talk about the 5 steps required to activate creative healing, this creative healing process, which often actually opens the door for even spontaneous healing to occur. We talk about what is the fastest route to accessing expanded fields of consciousness, as well as what may be the biggest deterrent from accessing these fields. And this might very much surprise you, because one of the biggest deterrents from accessing these expanded fields of consciousness is one of the things that is so highly promoted at this point in time. And probably most important is that we get to have some fun with our guests, and we ask them some really just light, fun questions, like things like, what are their favorite books? What are their favorite movies? What are some of the things they do in their downtime? What's their favorite ice cream flavor? I think it's always fun to get this personal side of some of these guests. These are people that often inspire us, and it's nice for us to know, well, what inspires them? What do they do? And sometimes the answers might surprise you. So because we finished the episode and we didn't get a chance to actually put up Dr. Goswami and Valentina's information, I want to put it right here. So in order to learn more specifically about the work that they're doing, go to dramitgoswami.org. Here's the website right here. I'll put the link in the show notes. This will bring you all of the information to, I think, a dozen books that he's written, a few of them that he's written together with Valentina. Subscribe to their newsletter, learn more about the work that they're doing. When things open up, they'll be doing more courses again as well. Learn about the school that they are doing, where they are literally teaching people how to integrate quantum science and this integrative quantum medicine paradigm in healing. All right, everybody, I hope you enjoy this episode. I so appreciate being able to talk with both of them, and I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Inspire Health podcast. And we are going to kickstart our new series called Energy, Frequency, Vibration, and Magnetics, the next era of healthcare. And we are super excited to have back Dr. Amit Goswami, as well as Valentina Onisor. And we're going to introduce them first, and then we're going to jump into everything here. So if you haven't seen the episode that we did with Dr. Goswami, check out the Mind, Body, Spirit series, and he's in there. I'll put a link to that episode. We had a really fascinating conversation, and we're just going to expand on that today. So Dr. Amit Goswami, PhD, discovered the solution to the quantum measurement problem and developed a science of experience. He developed a theory of reincarnation and integrated conventional and alternative medicine within the new quantum science of health. Among his discoveries are the quantum theory of the creative process, the theory of quantum evolution, the theory of quantum economics, and the theory of quantum spirituality. Based on the exploration of wholeness, he is the author of numerous books. Amit started the quantum activism movement, establishing a transformative education institution, Quantum Activism Vishwalayam, in India, based on quantum science and primacy of consciousness. Valentina Onisor is a medical doctor, practices family medicine physician who integrates alternative medicine systems into her practice, committed to consciousness, awakening-related sciences, and a pioneer of quantum integrated medicine. Valentina has made correlations between the ancient sciences and quantum physics, using both as a support for her teachings. As a leader in transformational education, Valentina serves as teacher, co-founder, and dean of students at Quantum Activism Vishwalayam. She is also a lecturer at Quantum Academy in Brazil. Finally, Valentina is a co-author, along with Dr. Amit Goswami, of another recently released book, Quantum Spirituality. Guys, thank you so much for being here. What a pleasure to have you both on the show.
It's our pleasure, Jason.
Wonderful to meet you.
Yes, wonderful to meet you too. And when I had seen a couple of other interviews with Dr. Goswami, and then Valentina, when you joined, I really wanted to have your input on here as well, because it's such a beautiful blend. When you guys go back and forth, you both kind of cover different areas in slightly different ways. And it really brings, I mean, to me, it brings a holism to the conversation.
We sure hope so. That's the idea.
So we're going to start off with a couple of really important questions here that sort of rapid fire that we'll start off. So maybe Dr. Goswami, we'll start with you here. So who is your favorite author or favorite book?
Very, very hard to answer. Well, look, I mean, it really put me on this. I should have consulted your list of questions.
Oh, these ones weren't even on the list. These are more just fun ones to ask a couple of fun questions to see.
Okay, well,
Give it to me.
Most inspiration I get, is from a poet, Bengali poet. He got Nobel Prize in Literature in 1913, Rabindranath Tagore. In his day, he was quite famous, but outside of Bengal now, probably nobody remembers him. So I have Rabindranath Tagore, Mahatma Gandhi, and Sri Aurobindo. These are the three people who most inspire me. But of course, I greatly feel inspired also by quantum physicists, Einstein, Niels Bohr, Heisenberg, and of course, John von Neumann, whom I owe a lot because he had the basic idea on which I had the breakthrough.
Wonderful. It's always fun to ask people that inspire us who inspired them or who they appreciate. Valentina, what about for you? Who's your favorite author or favorite book?
The one which came to my mind was The Alchemist and Paulo Coelho. So it's a very simple book, but to me, it touched my soul. So I was really reading it with all my heart. And the second day, I think I had the state of truly awakening of my soul. And the things fall in place and the synchronicity developed for a month after that. So it was just so special.
Wonderful. I love that book too.
You asked one, so I'm giving you one.
A couple of other questions.
Dr. Goswami, what is your favorite ice cream flavor?
This one is not so tough. I fluctuate a lot, but more or less, I have to admit chocolate probably is the
chocolate. Very good.
A chocolate man. And what about yourself, Valentina?
Oh, chocolate everywhere, every day, every night.
Our girls would get along with both of you well.
Valentina, what's your favorite song?
No, that's difficult. I have to think. Because usually I listen a lot to the symphonic musics, which are pieces which are meant especially to awaken various states.
No, that's good.
No, I have to think.
Good.
You make me
no,
think.
that's good.
That's
that
perfect.
answered it. Yeah. Yeah. And what about yourself, Dr. Goswami?
Well, I again have to say Rabindra Sangit, that's what really heart's favorite. But in English American song, I am very much of a fan of all the great folk music writers and singers in the 70s. That was my heyday in America. So I still remember Killing Me Softly, and I remember Susan takes me down to this river. So that Judy Collins, those are.
Yeah, you know what? I remember. So I think you should hear Amit singing. So he's such a great singer, really.
A
hidden talent. Well, that was one of our questions. Do you play musical instruments? So you've got a good singing voice, Amit.
Oh, that's great.
Maybe we'll put a clip at the end of the show with
showcasing that.
Well, we actually, when one of our daughters was born, we did a home birth, and we actually had, for both of them, we had different songs playing during the birth. And for our older girl who was 5, we had Om Niva Shiva playing throughout the whole time. So she even still will ask sometimes to put that song on, and she just has some sort of a memory to it. So it's actually really quite beautiful.
Very beautiful.
Wonderful. And last question before we get into everything is, what do you guys like to do in your downtime? So Valentina, for you, when you're not lecturing and studying and everything, what do you enjoy doing on your downtime?
I practice yoga, and that gives me a lot, we practice a bit different than what the mainstream is. And that's wonderful for me. And I go swimming and walking, of course. And what can I say? So we have a lot of meetings with friends, even now online, if it's the case, but meaningful meeting and beautiful. So the connection is not really lost, even if it's difficult. So this would be
Nice. And Dr. Goswami?
Well, similar. I jog a little. If it is before bedtime, what relaxes me most is absolutely nonsense novels that you can buy on the airport, bestsellers, that kind of thing. But really, if I have a little bit of time to relax, I want to regroup, then I just sit with a cup of tea, with my feet on the table, and just veg out. We have a great pond to look at here, and looking at water is very relaxing for me.
Yeah, I couldn't
and
agree
hot
with
chocolate.
you more. And hot chocolate.
Yeah, that.
We full circled back to almost one of the
Chocolate.
first questions with chocolate. Wonderful. Okay, so now everybody gets a bit more of a personal side of both of you. Where I'd love to start would be, because this is talking about the next era of medicine or the next era of healthcare. And I'd love to hear from your perspectives, what is the current healthcare system? Why is it not complete? And what would constitute more of a complete system? So,
you know, the basic stuff that is wrong with the medicine system is that it is disease-centered. It has to be preventive medicine for really taking good healthcare, also to bring the cost down. But the difficulty has been that there has been no theory of medicine. Medicine is half science, as you probably know. But of course, these strict materialists would not admit it. But there has been no theory after the germ theory. There's a little bit of theoretical point in the fact that mental stress, emotional stress causes disease, chronic disease. But that's not a theory. That's just an idea whose time has come. We, on the other hand, Valentina and I, especially, I originally wrote a book on it, but Valentina added enormous new insights in the new book that we just now finishing, called Quantum Integrative Medicine, in which we are proposing that we have now the theory. We have the theory of why emotional stress, for example, causes disease like cancer and heart disease. We have the theory why Ayurveda works and how Ayurveda can be integrated with traditional Chinese medicine and chakra medicine. So we really have a complete theory of both of the healing aspects of chronic disease, the alternative medicine and also the mind-body medicine. And in addition, we bring the idea of creativity. We call it quantum healing. We are very busy, you know, we have this transformational university for basically giving master's and PhD program in health sciences, both mental and physical. And we mainly try to inspire our students to work on quantum healing, how creativity can be applied to quantum healing. Valentina is an expert on yoga, traditional yoga. So she and I has developed a complete system of quantum yoga. Quantum system modifying traditional yoga and Tai Chi and Qigong practices to and meditation to develop a complete healthcare system of preventive health. So with this, we are proposing in this new book that people should change their medicinal habit from one of pessimism to one of optimism and take responsibility, take credit for their health, and really heal themselves most of the time, reduce the pressure on the medical experts, and take away the power that the big pharma has on everybody today. This cannot be maintained, as we all know. But the politicians in America and elsewhere are able to do nothing. As you know, worldview polarization has taken care of that. So our only hope is to change ourselves, both doctors and the patients, and see what we can do. Valentina will add much more. she's very passionate about preventive.
Yeah, so can I add something?
Absolutely.
Okay, because I come from this current, from conventional medicine. I started in this way. My father was a doctor. And so conventional medicine is generally evidence-based, but that is not really a virtue, you know. So the spirit of science, which is the exploration of truth, you know, not the materialistic science, but what we really call science is the exploration of truth, you know, and that requires that we have both theory and experiment to build science, yeah. And the only theory the conventional medicine can claim is this germ theory. Yeah, and even that, we are not so sure in all the what is bringing. But the alternative medicine systems are based each on individual metaphysics and theories, and they are not entirely scientific also, you know. So also you can say that this mainstream medicine practice, modern medicine or allopathy, how it's called, is based on the philosophy of the primacy of matter or material monism. Yeah. So here the quantum physics, of course, is bringing this radical revision of modern medicine, which is very much called for. And the healthcare crisis that we see today is demanding this action and paradigm shift, as Amit mentioned, from a disease-oriented system, you know, towards health, you know, but we even forgot what is health. And in the absence of a theory, the conventional medicine has been largely forced to stay disease-centered. Yeah? So only when you have a disease can clinical studies develop drugs or surgery, and it's too much surgery, even that, you know, or other procedures, you know. And we speak about like your allopathic physician can treat you to alleviate just some symptoms, but they don't get to the cause, obviously. So it's limited prevention guidance, which can be given on the emphasis of improved diagnostic procedures, yeah, which is, so there again, we are not against allopathy, no, not at all, just to see the limitations, and also not all the not what we find as alternative treatments are, how to say, many of them need to be revised as well. So you will discover that we come with another kind of theory for Ayurveda, which again, so many things need to be revised, and a fresh look and meaning comes from that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well said. There's a lot of key points in that. And I think one of the things that I really appreciate that falls within this type of new system is, as you said, Dr. Goswami, about responsibility. And I feel like in many ways, this is even what's been showing up. I mean, I've seen over the last year and a half too, is there's a big conversation around self-authority and sovereignty and basically having to come back and really, I mean, my feeling from being a naturopathic doctor and an osteopath, it's like we really believe in the inner physician. There really is an inner physician, and a lot of that revolves around us being able to genuinely and authentically connect to that knowingness that's inside. I think the tricky part then is assisting people in arriving at a more authentic connection to that inner physician or to that inner knowing, so that then they can actually navigate their life choices a little bit differently. Because what you're talking about is essentially, you know, physical health starts here, but there's a lot of different bodies, as in your work, Dr. Goswami, where it's like you've got a vital body and a mental body and an archetype and a spiritual body, and there's all these different areas. And in order to allow those, because those are all going to filter down and affect the physical body. So how do we start to address those and even be aware that they're there and that they're important? Where do you begin that process?
Yeah, that is the important thing, and this is where we have made huge progress. We even have experimental support for this now. The title of this series that you have initiated greatly inspires us, because yes, vital energy, the energy that that is in the title of your series, is indeed vital energy. And this is the non-physical energy, but now we know how to measure it, because the human body, not so surprisingly, of course, human body does have a electrical body of the skin, and which does have both static and dynamic field. As a static field, we can measure it first done through Carlian photography, and now the techniques are much, much better. At least they say they are. I'm not so convinced all the time, but people are trying. And there is a very good progress in terms of the dynamic part of the field, which is biophoton emission. You see, whenever an organ, this is our major point, we are born with a certain physiology, everybody is right there. But what quantum science is showing us that the physiology is not fixed. We can change it through creativity. And Ayurveda already has anticipated this, even millennia ago. We now have completely formulated how this creativity works, how it redefines the physiology. And when the physiology is redefined, that's when the body organs, which are, although in principle quantum, but because they are macro objects, they also is conditionable and become pretty much work in a conditioned way. In other words, there are quantum possibilities to choose from, but the possibilities have only a small spectrum of choices. This is good already, and this is how Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine is better than conventional medicine, but it is still not the best way to operate our health, because this cannot handle when we truly get into like huge emotional stress. Then the system is challenged beyond the capacity of this physiology. This is why we get disease. Our idea is that if we can improve the physiology, as suggested in Ayurveda, and now we have perfected it with quantum healing and quantum yoga, then we operate, the bodies become more quantum. For example, I'll give you a most striking example. In the heart chakra, in the region of the heart, there are two important targets. One is the thymus gland, which is part of the immune system, and the other is the heart, of course. Now, thymus gland is the developing immune system in our childhood and young adulthood. And this thymus gland becomes defensive. That's its job under normal physiology. But if we creatively or occasionally suspend the immune system, this idea of defending myself against others, especially against our intimate relationship, what happens is that as soon as the immune system is temporarily suspended, the heart becomes quantum. And then the heart becomes coherent. And this coherence with the brain has been demonstrated by the HeartMath Institute with actual measurement. What happens is what we experience as love. So love is a function of the quantum heart. Love could not exist if the heart remains a blood pump and the immune system is defensive. When immune system is suspended, love comes to us, and the immune system as a result overall becomes more healthy. This more healthy immune system with not much defensiveness, immune defensiveness overacting is the real problem. It produces so many diseases, even Alzheimer, even the response to COVID, about which everybody is worried these days. Even that is a result of immune defense. I mean, this immune extra defensiveness produces all that really the complications that we are seeing, called immune inflammation. This inflammation, if we could prevent that, much of our disease problems would be solved. And love is the solution. It may sound very trite, but love in the quantum way, a little bit different than the sex-oriented romantic love. It's more unconditional. But nevertheless, sex is a good start towards love. So we are not in support of eliminating sex like the spiritual traditions were. We like sex, we encourage sex, but at the service of love. If we can do that, then we guarantee that people can live a very healthy, happy life. Improve physiology. And similarly, other organs can also operate at improved physiology.
Can we backtrack a little bit? Can we maybe define quantum for the listeners and viewers who might not be familiar with your work?
Yeah, I think quantum, what that means, and quantum creativity also, just so that we've got a foundation for people to understand when we're talking about it.
So, Valentina, you want to go?
You can do quantum, I can do creativity.
All right. So quantum originally means a discrete quantity. And that's not the meaning we use when we say quantum today. We understand quantum. When we understood quantum, it is clear that the quantum expresses itself most as the statement that instead of objects being deterministic in their movement, quantum objects gives us possibility to choose from. And consciousness chooses which will be the manifestation. So think of the world, material world, mental world, emotional world, all of these as possibilities for consciousness to choose from. And here is the key. We can choose healthy possibilities. We can choose possibilities that will make us sick. In general, possibilities that are limited possibilities of conditioned possibilities that we have made ourselves into, conditioning, that produces a constriction of consciousness to the extent that we often increase the probability of getting sick. So creativity is the key. If we expand our consciousness, include more people in our relationships, then what happens? We get a much broader spectrum of choices. And if we choose responsibly, if we choose with care and attention, then we can actually maintain health in both emotional and in physical terms. This is the fundamental explanation of why quantum is so effective, so good.
That sounds great. We're going to go into that in a little bit more detail here in just a bit. Valentina, around creativity.
So creativity and healing probably. So creativity is, as the quantum possibilities, it's at our hand, but we don't use it so much because we don't, I mean, even if you think that you have, or you don't even know what are your choices, first of all. And then when we investigate, for example, creativity of the mind, we find that creativity at the low level consists in finding new meaning, a shift of the mental meaning from conditioned old ones to an inventive new one. But we don't change the archetypal context. We'll talk about archetypes also when we speak about meanings. So this is called situational creativity. So it's at the lower level, which still is something. Yeah, you engage with the doctor in the beginning of your treatment. But at the higher level, creativity consists of discontinuous leaps in the archetypal context of thinking as well. And that's called fundamental creativity and consists of discovery, because here we are discovering the fundamental laws of movement of different worlds, kind of, you know, in the compartment of consciousness, which is called supramental. Okay, so above the way that we usually think and rationalize, yeah. So we also have forgotten about this realm, which is the realm of intuitions, actually. And we can access it, again, through intuition and creative insights, okay? And in contrast, the situational creativity is invention, accessible, at least in principle, to reason. And invention depends on the discoveries of fundamental creativity, not the other way around. And for example, you have a situation of a person having cancer, you have to engage fundamental creativity, definitely. And that means also to completely change your life and to dedicate yourself to that, to the end, you know. So the existence of fundamental creativity points us to the existence of the supramental world, you know. But the supramental world is not only the reservoir of the context of mental meaning, but also of vital functions and physical laws. So kind of we didn't evolve too much the capacity of making these direct representations of the supramental archetypes onto the physical. And we do that with thoughts and feelings that an archetype evokes, making mental and vital representations or memories of the archetypes in the process. But the totality of these representations can be thought as our supramental body. You know that we are not just the physical body, right? Hopefully all the people here know that we are not just the flesh, right? So the supramental body, again, it's one of our bodies. Some traditions call it a soul. Others call it a higher mind, for example, the supramental. But of course, the higher vital has to be involved also. And that's what we do in quantum yoga. And in this way, the soul consists of software of higher mind, as well as positive emotional circuits in the body and the brain. You speak about all what's happening nowadays with COVID. It's so much fear, anxiety, and you don't know who's attacking and whom, you know, vaccinated, unvaccinated, whatever. And it's created all that contraction, yeah. And indeed, only purposive work, kind of, in order to find out what is your dharma, what is really, why are you here for? Kind of find the meaning in your life, and of course learn how to create all these positive emotional brain circuits. You know, to really emphasize on the importance in our life of love, compassion, forgiveness, all these things which are there, but unfortunately we have built in our brain the negative ones, which are 5 times stronger. That's something which I didn't know until I met quantum science. So if you want, I can give you some examples of creativity in healing now or later.
Yeah, I would like to hear some examples of that. And also when you had mentioned that how did you say the lower frequencies are 5 times stronger? Can you explain what you mean by that?
Negative emotional brain circuits. You know, so all these negative emotional brain circuits, that's why people nowadays, they are very, when you see this news, which are full of horror and stuff like that, why are they like that? Why they sad? Because the people are very receptive to these ones. You know, even if in the world there's also beauty and love, it's not so interesting to be in the news, right? Because it doesn't sell. So
are they stronger in the sense that we're almost more wired for in that fight or flight kind of survival mode, so that when we hear messages like that, they get ingrained very quickly because we're sort of wired for survival and protection. So that's why they get so ingrained. They're not necessarily more powerful than expansion of, say, love or peacefulness or joy, but they're very gripping because they tie back into that baseline of survival.
Yeah, that is the problem, of course. We are very aware of the problem. The emotions are expressed in the body organs. At the navel chakra, there is the very important emotion of feeling self-worth, self-respect, responsibility, this kind of thing, courage to act creatively. In the heart, of course, there is love, which is a fantastic positive emotion, which has so much healing power. And then the brain also does have very much positive energies. Curiosity is a very important one for people who can change their lives. Satisfaction is another one, another very positive emotion. But the problem is, of course, that you are completely right. The midbrain has this negative emotional brain circuit we got from animals, instinctual brain circuits. And they are very powerful. So what happens in a disease, that's part of the theory of disease. It's a hard part to accept. But what diseases are designed as is to pay our attention, attract our attention to the fact that why we should not live the conditioned life and why we should move on to a purposive life, which is the movement that consciousness wants us to be in. Consciousness is designed to have a purpose. This is what science of consciousness says. We are evolving towards a purpose. Abraham Maslow discovered it in the 60s, that yes, when our lower needs are satisfied, we can go into purposive higher needs. But of course, very few people have heard it. Still, not a negligible fraction. Some psychologists are saying that maybe 15% of the world, we are all in that group, obviously, are looking for higher needs, and therefore it's not such a small number either. So this is what has to happen. Diseases are a reminder that you are too much associated with the lower needs. Change, otherwise disaster. And this is, of course, what is happening. So the crisis that we currently see is a double, triple reminder. All this calamity, people cannot handle it. What are people doing? They're hiding more and more polarized worldviews they cannot change. Whereas what we need is precisely the change, starting with worldview change. But see the newspaper reporters, the media, look at the politicians, look at people, and most of them dominated by this survival, always talk about survival. Joe Biden talked a little bit about higher needs and soul when he got inaugurated. That's how quickly the media got him into talking about just the mundane survival issues. This is the problem today, that nobody is talking about what needs to be done. Nobody is talking about positive health. Not true, not entirely true. Obviously, even Harvard University is changing its long-standing policy of negative psychology into positive psychology. So there is some progress. But the progress needs to happen at a much greater rate, and we hope our work will help to produce some of the progress. And others are there too. Deepak Chopra is a good one, pushed the idea of quantum healing. Rupert Sheldrake in England is another good force. Irving Laszlo in Europe is located in Hungary. He's another great one. So there are people, Graf, psychologists, there are people who are pushing us towards this, giving us some leadership towards positive emotional brain circuit. We are not exactly a lonely ox cart anymore. We are not a bandwagon, but still we are sort of in between.
Okay, I want to tie back to consciousness for a sec, because I think this is such a really important piece. So
maybe we can define that first.
Yeah, I would like to have your perspective on consciousness, how I think about consciousness. And one of my main teachers for a long time was Dr. David Hawkins, and he wrote the map of consciousness and did a lot of work around that. And that really helped me kind of have a picture of what that's like. And so the idea would be that consciousness is essentially the lens that you see and feel the world from. So depending on the area of consciousness that you're in, your view of the world and your interpretation of it changes accordingly. So if we are in a state of fear, then we see a very fearful world, and we have a fearful relationship with even source at that point. It's and as we continually move up in consciousness, the world keeps expanding. So expansion is inherent with higher states of consciousness. And from how I understand that is, I think the states of consciousness, as we keep expanding, we access more potentials of the infinite potentials that are there. So as we move into higher fields of consciousness, there's more choices that we are privy to. And it's from those different choices that we then are able to, if we choose them, we can then impact our lives and our health in such much more dramatic ways. So that's been my sort of interpretation of consciousness. From your perspectives, how do you view consciousness? And I think even more importantly is, if we know that these different states of consciousness are related to improvements in our life and our health in so many ways, how do we assist people in making those different leaps? Because they literally are, Valentina, like you had said, they are a leap, right? Like it's a transcendence almost in different states. So like when you read The Alchemist, you would have had a quantum leap, and you would have had a direct sensation of expansion within your own being. And from that, these aha moments are what ultimately I feel like then make us choose different things, because we feel very different and the world looks different. So how do we assist that process? Because it's not such a process of just straight information, it's very experiential. So how do you assist in the experience for people so that they then know it, as opposed to maybe understand it just intellectually?
Yeah, this is, of course, a very, very good question. And you have a very good psychologist to follow. David Hawkins is one of the really great ones, greatly inspiring books. The concept power versus force is basic, quantum physics. does not have the Newtonian concept of force. I mean, it does in the Newtonian limit of quantum physics, but in the quantum limit, we have the idea of choices. Force is replaced by power, to choose. That's the power. So how do we get that power? That, of course, is where we have definitely, by developing quantum science, you can call it exactly what you just said. Quantum science is the science of how to reclaim our power to choose. That's it. And then it is just a methodology that we have to develop. The ancient people suggested meditation as a methodology. That's a good part of the methodology, good part of creativity, that meditation does not do it by itself. Meditation has to be also accompanied by the creative process. So what we now have, Valentina and I have developed a 7-step process. And in this 7-step process, we start with first the difference between constricted and expanded consciousness. And that's the very important distinction. So if life can be started with expansion of consciousness, that's a good beginning. We intention, this purposive intentionality, or what my friend Gioacchino Pagliaro calls creative intentionality. That is very basic to creativity. So we develop creative intentionality. We start with ordinary intentionality, well, then we move on and connect it with the spirit. Let my ordinary intention be in consonance with the movement of consciousness, which is purposive. In other words, I dedicate my life to meaning and purpose. This is fundamental. Once that happens, then the intuitions come profusely. And if we follow up the intuitions, then creative process. Creative process, do is our own take. But of course, creative process has been known since 1926, preparation, unconscious processing, insight, and manifestation. It's full of quantum processes. Unconscious processing is a quantum processing, and insight is a quantum leap. So quantum science is essential for understanding how to reclaim our power to choose. And once we have the power to choose, we can choose a life of health and happiness, even prosperity, without so much work. We have the method at least, and so some effort is still needed. Inspiration is still needed. All these things are needed, but they come because I am already in consonance with the movement of consciousness. So inspiration will always be provided. These are called events of synchronicity. Carl Jung discovered the concept. So, we really have it, but it's not as simple as you stated, not even as simple as I stated. Let Valentina make it a little more complex. It will be a little bit better. But we have a 5-year program for developing proper soul making.
Yeah, Valentina, I'd love to hear your expansion on that.
So of course, it's again about creativity, you noticed. So about that power of creativity that we really, really have, and we should learn how to use it. Even if you think of just the wisdom of the body, illustrated, for example, in the placebo effect, as example of self-healing, which is kind of ritualized in us, But what we need to do is to keep this healing intention, active, And if we lose it, for example, you lose the faith in a doctor's word, you need to rekindle this healing intention, and this should give to the healee a glimpse of his or her own healing capacity. I tell you something, why we go to a doctor and why we go to a teacher, because we need that inspiration, so that it's reminding of things which we have inside of us. This healing capacity is inside of us. And it's not the doctor which is healing you. If it's a real doctor, he knows that it's just truly rekindling this spark. And the more he worked on himself, the more he will also follow this archetype. Again, I'm mentioning the word archetype of truth, for example. And in that way, it's not that he is just working for money, right? But he's truly making of that a transformative process, for himself. So he is healing together with his patients, right? So we emphasize also a lot, by the way, in the integrative medicine. It's about also developing this kind of process of transformation for both the healer and the healee. So kind of there, it's many things, including Tangle hierarchy, which is called, which are in work in a process of real healing in that way. So to truly manifest this capacity, the entire program of creativity and going through all the stages of the creative process, which ends in no less than a quantum change of the context of one's living, is essential. So to make the healing long lasting, one also has to live up to the insight gained and institute this new lifestyle, because eventually it will happen. So then if you want, I will mention this briefly, but again, it's so much. I suggest people start reading books like Quantum Creativity, or I think in all the latest books we speak about this. But so since the new insight thought, it's about an archetype, which is highest thinking, highest feeling. It's about our dharmas. It's about, again, the meaning in our life. It can also be approached in the beginning from the vital plane, yeah? And which will, it's, for me, it's not possible to work without the vital level. So only from the mental level, you cannot really do it. For engaging this vital creativity, the patient, for example, needs to concentrate on a chakra involved in the disease. We speak about this a lot in the medicine book, which will come. So we speak also about blocked areas, blocked chakras. And so briefly, the creative process consists of 4 stages, mainly: preparation, unconscious processing, which is achieved when we relax, and quantum possibility waves of archetypes, meanings, and feelings, which can expand and grow, producing new possibility, and the quantum leap of insight, yeah, when we choose a gestalt of actualities from all the possibilities. And finally, manifestation, which is the immediate change of the affected software to higher function, followed by lifestyle, of course, change as according to the new insight. But again, so it sounds simple. It's not so simple, I have to say. For example, women, we have so many times access to very special intuitions, in our lives, but we don't follow them through. Why? Because we don't have well developed the belly area, Manipura chakra, let's say, the navel. It's kind of, we speak also a lot why and how come that in men, this chakra, for example, is more developed. You see the man more confident, yeah, and usually. And the women, they have instead developed more the heart. But even that, kind of women, we need to learn so much about self-love and self-respect, So again, we have the potentiality there, but there are so many whys we don't follow through in a quantum process, yeah, for example. And we spoke about choices. Again, many times, if we are not able to do these little steps, we are not able to do. Means, kind of briefly put, to be able to focus very well on something that you're doing. And also you need to be able to relax. Nowadays, we don't relax. And in this moment of deep relaxation, that's what is needed for a deep healing and for anything else. Of course, a person which is not relaxed is not happy and is not healthy. Also, the more you're contracted, that's not about health and happiness, of course, right? And again, this is so much underrated nowadays, even in healing. And again, the process of healing happens when we learn to relax. Yeah, and relax doesn't mean to go to sleep or to switch off. Actually, it's a switch on. So, for example, if you heard about yoga nidra, walking in nature, truly connecting with the nature, and listening to the rivers, to the birds, to all these things which bring us also in our bodies, because we are so much in our minds nowadays. And it's getting worse and worse, unfortunately. So the first step, again, of creative healing is preparation, as I mentioned. So the patients are encouraged to research, to see what was the cause, first of all, in the disease or in a situation which is stressing them constantly. And with the help of this physician, hopefully transformed, who will act again more as a collaborator, And then, so again, they start to see what was the problem there, and they meditate on that. Was it a lifestyle? Was it something which I didn't forget in my past? I didn't forgive. And then I keep building this negative vicious circle, which makes my life shrunk. And I wonder why. Then you have to really apply forgiveness. Forgiveness is a wonderful, wonderful process, and it takes courage to do it. It's so much about that. So again, we meditate on that, and such meditation will show the role of the brain-mind doshas, how we call them, as to how they deal with emotional stress and how the habits of mentalization of feelings and suppression or expression of emotions, as the case may be, contribute to the disease. Yeah? So another root of emotional stress accumulation will become clear. Again, as I said, the do, be, do, speed, hurrying and rushing, augmenting the pursuit of desires only with accomplishment orientation only, so materially only focused, and all kinds of anxieties, and even daydreaming. You think that you're relaxing when you're daydreaming, but it's not like that. And so the first purpose of the preparation stage is to slow down the mental and vital conscious processing and to create an open, receptive attitude that's essential really as a first step towards any creativity. And then at the next stage, the patients and the doctors will try various techniques of mind-body medicines. And that's also the stage of creativity in which we use what we call unlearned stimuli to generate previously uncollapsed possibilities, waves of vital, mental, supramental. But we don't choose among the possibilities still. And since the only choice can create an event of conscious awareness, what is involved in unconscious processing without awareness. So in other words, this stage is the combination of alternate preparation and incubation, do, be, do. Incubation, think of that deep relaxation, I say that. So there is art therapy, for example. There is healing, spiritual, beautiful art, yeah, which, okay, maybe not work for everybody, but it's interesting to see how it's working, and how it's inspired. Of course, there are yoga postures, which can accompany visualization, suitably designed with evocative healing archetypal images, which will accomplish the same thing, and which is, again, to produce new possibilities of vital feelings and mental thinking for consciousness to choose from. But again, remember, even eventually we might have these insights, and then the thing is to follow them through. It's kind of, we are lacking so much the courage to do that nowadays, not just women, also men, because we are living in a way as if we are keeping the brake on all the time, and eventually, of course, what happens with the system, with the car, when you're just driving with the brake on, so eventually we'll crash. And then again, the other part, which is again beautiful somehow, when a disease happens, then you may ask yourself not necessarily how to get rid of it very, very quickly, but what is the message of this disease, What is my body and everything, or the consciousness trying to tell me to transform? And again, then we may really consider to change our lives, to stop engaging in a relation which is destructive for us, or simply, but again, it needs courage. You need this belly area, first of all. Without courage, you cannot engage transformation and also creativity, And so again, this is the final stage of the creative process, manifestation. And it's important to discuss in anything creative. So again, manifestation is not complete with only the reactivation of vital programs that are needed for the normal functioning of an organ, which was problematic maybe, So again, after a remission of a problem has taken place, the patient has to bring to manifestation some of the lifestyle changes, with the shift of context of mental processing and the processing of feelings, if the remission is to be stable and permanent. Usually, again, people heal from various big problems, but then again, they go back to the same pattern. And it's transformation is not easy, I have to say, and it's not coming usually, in a happy way. usually, again, we take for granted, unfortunately, so many things in our life. We take for granted that we have 2 hands, 2 legs. We don't cultivate gratitude for everything. And, you know, we have more like a beggar mentality instead of being aware what richness we have, you know. And again, if we are not, the more we are not aware of what we are and what we have, we lose it. And then we don't know why. And then, again, so it's eventually, again, life is a master. And out of love, I believe the message of consciousness for me is love, that we are in the same situation over and over, whether stress related or disease related, so that we really make that leap of transformation. Okay, so it's a lot to talk about this.
No, and there is a lot to talk about. That's beautiful. A couple key things I think I want to mention, that you've talked a lot about having to become actually conscious of this unconscious. And we would just actually, another guest that will be on this series is Dr. Todd Ovokidis. And I know Dr. Goswami, I think, has done some series with him with different groups at some time. But he actually just put out a quote the other day, and it just said, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives and you will call it fate.
Definitely.
And I think that's really profound, because it's so true. It's like, unless we are able to understand to a point what we've been doing, we are just limited to the potentials that we have access to, because it's in this constricted state. So until we have those awarenesses, then we start to see that we've got more choices than we think we do. One of the other things I wanted to mention around that was, it's funny because, well, 2 parts. First, the needing to get out of the stress state, basically, to even get into awarenesses. It's like, particularly, and I know different cultures have different ways of looking at this, but in more from a North American culture, that's a tricky piece for people, because people have been kind of taught, like, you got to go, go, go. Anything that is downtime is sort of not productive. And, you know, I know according to the do, it's like you have to have periods of downtime to be able to access the quantum leaps that are available to you, and then do and put them into action and put them into your lifestyle. But what I find a lot of times happens here is that, you know, people want to make changes in their health. So then they want to jump to the last step and try to make some lifestyle changes, but they haven't done the work prior. That's why they don't stay. Because if the work has been done prior, then you've had those shifts, and then the lifestyle changes are a natural consequence of that shift in consciousness. They're going to happen because you're already there. But if you're trying to put the cart before the horse, you're going to run into troubles. They'll never last. It's when people try to make dietary changes because they've been told that this is going to be good for your health, they usually crash and burn at some point, because we haven't made the shifts that need to happen on the other layers prior to that. Would that be what you find too?
Yeah, this is the problem. The North American mindset, let's talk about that a little, because that's where you were situated and I am also. And the European mindset is a little bit different in where Valentina lives, Eastern Europe, but Western Europe is also dominated by the same mind-based, intellectuality-based mindset. So what happens, even women are becoming very mind-oriented these days, brain-oriented rather than emotions in the body. So what happens is that without the emotions brought into the arena of health consideration, you cannot bring enthusiasm. Emotions is the quickest way of becoming enthusiastic about anything. Emotion is the quickest way of expanding consciousness. You cannot do it with mind very easily. Mind is intellectualized. It uses logic too much. And the more you use logic, the more consciousness becomes constricted instead of being expanded, more machine-like. And this is very hard for intellectuals to understand. You know, Noam Chomsky calls these intellectuals with values, and that's a pejorative because the intellectuals with values are intellectualizing about the values, about the archetypes. They're not seeing that archetypes can be represented, yes, by intellect, but only in a limited way. To really get to the depth of the archetype, you have to be emotional. You have to get the feelings, the noble feelings. You have to find love, curiosity, satisfaction. These are all feelings. They're not logical, and they're not expressible in terms of intellectual logic all the time. Eventually, yes, like quantum physics certainly is an intellectual achievement, agreed. But what it gets us is a science of emotions. This is the most important contribution of quantum science, giving us a science of emotion and science of the archetype. We have to bring the emotions and archetypes in our lives. Without this, healthy, happy, even prosperity is impossible. If the intellectuals only bring chaos in the world, and intellectuals both ways. I mean, this is the thing, Republicans, Democrats, doesn't matter. Both sides think the others is right. But the point is, materialism is a big lie. It is the biggest fabrication of reality that we have done. And then to blame the conspiracy theorists for minor breaches of truth, that's foolish, because if a major breach happens, which says values don't exist, truth doesn't exist, emotions don't exist, then what do you expect people to do? Lie quiet? No, people just go wild and say anything because they see a license for doing anything, saying anything. So this is what the chaos creation that is happening, and this is why civilization is going down in these countries unless we shape up. The world will suffer because the world is expecting the rich countries to take a lead in everything. So although we keep trying, but it is a fact that Indians, Brazilians, they all follow Americans and Europeans. So unless we change the American European mindset, this mindset that we both are talking about, we all are talking about, we really do not have much hope of making lasting changes. We can contribute a little bit here and a little bit there, change some people, hope that the 15% will grow to 30%, but to affect things in a major way, to solve the crisis problems that we have today, we really need to break down that intellectual mindset of the Western American and European mindset especially. How to do that? That's why I have quantum activism. I don't think there is any other way of doing it but to be activistic. And I think that this show that you're producing right now is part of that activism. If more and more people know that alternative thinking is available, alternative thinking is so complete, as Valentina laid out in detail, people can rely on it. It's all scientific. Neuroscience has verified Kalyan photography, biophoton emission has verified the veracity of the vital body. The neuroscientist with functional MRI measurements, imaging of brain, has verified much of the creative changes that we are talking about. Brain actually becomes quantum when it is creative. We have neuroscience evidence for it. We have neuroscience evidence for the spirit in us, of the quantum self that we call it. So, what are people looking for? We have science. We really have verifiable ideas today. Spirituality is all verified. It's fact. So what are we waiting for? Only stupidity and fear is keeping us back.
Yeah, I'm actually still really excited for what's coming, because I do feel very optimistic about the changes. And you had said something earlier, Valentina, around inspiration. And that's actually why we even named this Inspire Health podcast, because for me, that's when I feel like I'm very connected to source, is when I feel that tingliness and excitement exude through my entire body when I get inspired about something. And I know that I'm tapping into something much, much larger than the small self. And so to me, it's like, and that also connects us very quickly. It's like you feel the heart expand, you feel it ties you more to service to others versus service to self most of the time. And it
empowers you.
It empowers, and it creates a strong sense of meaning and purpose. And why is meaning such a powerful aid in creating a better life for ourselves and even tying into spontaneous healing? What is so powerful about meaning? and creating meaning in our lives. Because I really do think this is a conversation I have a lot of times with patients, is that meaning has gradually disappeared from their life, and then they're just sort of in this hamster wheel of keeping things moving, that nothing is actually meaningful. And this conversation comes up a lot when I'm speaking particularly to my patients that are moms, where the children have now gotten to a certain age where they've left the home, and now there's this sort of emptiness, and a lot of their meaning has been tied to specifically the family dynamic. And now that the kids are there and they don't need them in the same way, there's an absolute shift taking place where they are needing to find meaning within themselves that's not what it used to be for them. So what is so powerful about meaning?
Well, meaning gives a context to everything. Meaning, without say, we have experiences, right? We have the experiences of feeling, we have experiences of thought, we even have intuition. Each of these experiences, meaning is basic, because if we don't know the meaning of the experience, we don't know how to express, how to relate with you. World is built on relationships. I can have all the experiences I want. Sure, that will change me, but I cannot affect your behavior by just feeling in here. I have to communicate with you. So meaning of my feelings, the worldview that I build, is my way to communicate experiences. And this is communication that builds civilization. We don't need meaning, we need intuitions and feelings. Somebody might say that way itself I can transform. Yes, perhaps so. But it is important to see that animals did not transform. Animals had to go through the stage of meaning before we can experience intuitions. So archetypes don't even come to us before meaning processing power has developed. So meaning, you're right, meaning is the base. This is why whenever we talk about purpose, we talk about meaning. Because without the meaning-giving mind, who will elaborate what the purpose really is about? So mind is very important. What we are saying in addition, when we glamorize or put in front the idea of emotions and intuition, is that mind alone has a habit, this dosha, that idea that Valentina mentioned, that habit of becoming corrupted into the logical aspects of mind, which follows from mind itself. Mind must be guided by intuition. Purpose must guide the meaning processing, and meaning processing must be accompanied by feelings, because without feelings, we don't know what purpose is the right purpose for me. With feeling, there will be a feeling in my gut telling me that, yes, this is right. Or there will be a feeling in my heart, expand my consciousness, and then I know that, yes, this is right. So feeling is necessary, intuitions are necessary because they are the guiding principles of our life, but meaning is still a central part of what we have, what we do, what we are here for. If I don't know the meaning of my life, I know nothing about myself that I can communicate.
Mm-hmm. And so this would require then for us to be able to actually reconnect back to the body and actually start to retrust again our gut instincts and our heart feelings, rather than rationalizing them away because maybe they don't fit our current reality in some way.
Yes, this is why when Valentina was studying yoga and discovered these asanas, what they actually do. You know, there are some asanas she found, which is that which actually helps you to fix up, balance the gut, balance the heart. Why don't you talk about that a little, Valentina?
I will, but just let me mention something else about meanings, because it's important. So we have to realize that we live today in information processing dominated era, you know, and it's even now, especially, okay, now we have the COVID thing. But even without, like, we have to become aware that we developed truly an addiction of computers, of internet, of so many other things in that way. Yeah, so information processing, and that is destroying our brains and it's destroying our lives, really. And of course, you cannot go into that do at all when you are in this position. So we have to kind of realize that if we want to live healthy, happy, and with meaning, and discover some good things, and not be just a machine and a robotic thing, as material science are talking about us, that we don't have the power to transform ourselves, then we have to again become aware of this, what we developed. I think almost all of us have at a certain level this kind of problem. You sleep with the phone by the bed, you wake up, you jump on the phone. So how do you think that you can start a day of meaning in that way, or in the evening? Again, you're just exhausting yourself, even if many times you don't do much, but then you still feel exhausted. And all this syndrome of fatigue, which is there, of course, together with the hidden depression and stress and all that, again, because of the lack of meanings. Why Alzheimer is manifesting nowadays, even at 40s and 50s, again, this is one of the causes. Another thing is that people, women, for example, when they heal from different types of cancer, what they have in common is that they discover the meaning of their life. And that's something much stronger than anything which keeps them crippled and contracted and creates that quantum leap of transformation. So when we discover again the meaning of our life, or we just discover somehow the meaning, which again is related with the archetypes, life changes, okay? And also our perception upon things, we are not anymore in the victim mode, yeah? So these archetypes, they bring purpose to life, yeah? And we spoke about feelings, of course, generated by this archetypal elevation as positive. And one more thing about this is the quality of life and longevity are related. And again, there's so much evidence that living a purposive life, so again, with meaning, it leads to increased longevity and the quality of life, not to mention, yeah? So if we follow at least some purpose in our youth, life is mainly spent in the surface of lower needs. But the professions allow people to entertain a modicum of archetypes in their life. For example, abundance, the business people. But again, it has to be approached differently. You're not looking for abundance only in the material level. You're looking for abundance also, so to have abundance of love in your life. You're looking for abundance of meaning in your life, abundance for wonderful relations, not just money. So that's another trick there. Power, it's another archetype. For example, politicians and leaders. And power, if you are in that category, we need to learn that we have to add the power of love and compassion, first of all. If we go only on the path of power and manipulation, obviously, we are just destroying ourselves. Other archetypes, again, which are part of meaning, and you have to discover which is yours, usually it's one or two, can be truth, of course. Scientist, media persons should be on that. Imagine what will happen if the media persons would not say only what is really true. Okay, and the wholeness, of course, for the healers and some educators and so on. So there are a few archetypes, which is a big chapter of what we do in the university. But unfortunately, the purpose of life then gets almost entirely tied up with one's professional life. Yeah, so for people, they just get a job to make money, to survive, usually, and then of course you get tired at the end of the day, and that's a sign that ask yourself, is that in line with your meaning? So quality of life, purpose, meaning, these are not in the purview of materialist science, but okay, so these are things to really be attentive and work upon. And what Amit said about some exercises, for example, it's very easy, even now you can do, simply sit with the back straight and try to see what's happening with your belly area. Is it contracted? And try to breathe in. And when you breathe in, also engage the abdomen area. While you breathe in and out, simply. Abdominal breathing. That's a very easy way and very efficient way to learn to unblock and to harmonize a little bit this area, and that will change so many things. For example, if you have some important meeting, and just before that, instead of just jumping in a very hasty way, stay with yourself and do this abdominal breathing for a while. Just pay attention to your breathing, and also allow the abdomen to expand and contract again, and gradually also become aware of what's happening in other moments in your life. Especially women, I have to say, usually women, we live with this area so contracted and blocked that it's no wonder there's so many problems of health, and also others related to happiness and to the way we engage in life, with the self-trust, with the optimism that, with the state of solarity and courage, of course. So it starts from there. So that's an easy exercise, since Amit was asking, simply abdominal breathing and becoming aware to relax on purpose the belly area. No matter what's happening, that you feel that your belly becomes bigger or what, it's much more important to learn to relax, so that eventually the energy which is stuck there has a chance to move at the beginning.
I think that's beautiful and very well said. I love the concept of archetypes, and it reminds me when I was growing up, I can't remember the name of them, but my mom had a series of books, and they were all basically different sort of concepts. So one might be the lesson of love, or one might be the lesson of courage, and it basically followed through a specific person's life and trials and tribulations that helped them arrive at that. So when I think about archetypes, because archetypes are very powerful. I mean, that falls up in your spectrum up around the supermental, which has a huge capacity to shift. And like I said, Valentina, when you had read The Alchemist, you would have connected to a certain archetype of that. I remember when I read one of Don Miguel Ruiz's books, and at the end of that book, I literally was catapulted into this field of love for a short period of time, where I felt like I was walking, and that's all I could see everywhere I looked. It was a really transformational experience for me. And it really is just paints everything different. And there's no more will involved in trying to make you see things or think of things differently. You just automatically see the world from a very different perspective. It's like if you've been looking at something in this angle all the time, trying to see it different, you just won't. But all of a sudden, if you get a view of it coming this way, everything looks different for a moment. And so I think it's actually a really good practice for people to, if you resonate with certain people. I remember when I was writing a book called Letters That Move the World, Intentional Acts of Gratitude, was an idea to create a movement of people writing these appreciation letters across the globe to people all within a period of time. And when I was researching that, it was like I was really diving into people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, and lots of different people in my mind that just helped me feel a certain way inside that allowed me then to connect to what that legitimately felt like. So I encourage people, if you resonate with certain people, read about them, go into their autobiographies, connect with different people that fill you up and make you feel a certain way. That's a very authentic way to start to create a genuine feeling that then allows you to see things differently. It lets you step into different shoes for a period of time. I know we're running up on time here, and I very much appreciate talking with both of you. Maybe a final question would be, given where we are in the world today, what words of wisdom would you share that will help us both individually heal as well as collectively move us towards the most optimal path to healing as a global community?
Well, I think we have to bring the archetypes back in our lives to give meaning and our feelings the proper context that they need. We have become too attached to the survival needs. We really need to shift. We really need to realize that we have enough of material level of prosperity. Any further is going to destroy the world's environment itself. This is the message of global climate change. The message is we have to reduce seriously our ever-increasing cost of living. and standard of living. If the entire earth here, common decency and common expectations expected the kind of wasteful life that an American or West European has, the world would be so hot in 50 years that we won't be able to live here anymore. And that's the direction that the world is going, because Indians, Brazilians, Africans, Chinese already, they're demanding that why should we not live the wasteful life of the West if they're the exemplars of creators of the worldview. So West really has to recognize these things. It is no mystery that quantum physics was developed in the West, and Westerners should learn the lesson of that. And the lesson is very clear. Until we reduce this wasteful lifestyle, the world is going out so hot that nobody will be able to live here. If this message we could live along with the message of bringing back the archetypes in our life, which will enable us to reduce, bring back creativity in our life, meaning in our life, to enable us to reduce the standard of living. Because as soon as you start discovering higher needs, Maslow said, and it is true, we find experientially and empirical data is bearing this out. As soon as people have meaning in their life, they give up the West, they can reduce. So this is really this way to save. It's not about car mileage, although that is important. It's not about carbon tax, although that is important too. But those are very minor dent in the way that we are polluting. The pollution is being caused because of our extravagant lifestyle, very energy intensive lifestyle. We got to change that. This message, along with the message of the archetype, meaning and purpose that we talked about, is what I would give to everyone.
Beautiful.
Right.
Valentina?
And to further on, if you want, you can realize a little bit that we are not the only existing beings in this beautiful universe. And unless we start manifesting our human qualities, which start with the point when you awaken your heart, which is the fraternity, that nowadays we are so much isolating ourselves. There's so much loneliness, which leads to this emphasis of the ego and fear and panic and depression and so on. Yeah. So we need to change that, and we can do it. We can truly do it. Just again, remember that we are not alone, and remember that we can ask for help. There are guardian angels. There are highly evolved extraterrestrial beings even. There are cosmic powers. There is so much help which exists, which we can evoke. There are, as you mentioned, spiritual masters or other very special people, authentic people, which can be an example to inspire us and put the flame in our heart, the flame in our spirit, so that we revive. Unless this happens, we don't want to die, right, as a society and civilization, but the danger is there. So we need to do it, and the more people will do it, the effect will be felt by many. We don't even need to do it so many, maybe, but we need to, it's our responsibility. So starting to live lives of responsibility, and of course, for me, the way is through love. Yeah. So whether we have somebody in our lives, a lover, or, whether we don't have, we have to start with love. That's my opinion. That's the gate towards the supramental experiences. That's the gate towards reminding yourselves about these powerful archetypes, which are actually divine attributes.
I think that's beautiful. And it reminds me too that one of the things Dr. Hawkins talked about is two really important fields that he would focus on would be, in his scale, it went from 0 to 1,000 was sort of his scale. And 200 was the cutting point. And he said, first, that was an incredibly important field, and that was the field of courage. And the field of courage means that we have the courage to honestly look at ourselves and look at our own drawbacks and the chinks in our own armor and have an authentic look at where we are. And until we're able to do that, we can't then explore the states above that. And he said that the next stage that was incredibly important was the field of love. and that actually is the field that everybody should be striving for, because that is very attainable within the human condition, and that will actually that will heal everything. So I think about that a lot. It's like, are we acting from a place of courage where we're just being honest with ourselves? And if we can do that, then I feel like we open the gates to all of this other beneficial fields. So, and like you had said, Valentina, there's so much more support. I think when we can connect to whatever resonates with us and connects us to that feeling of source, I mean, it's transformative. That's the world of spontaneous healing. It's like you get these direct expansions of huge consciousness that often go well above even what the human can actually even achieve. I remember Dr. Hawkins saying, human body, because of the physiology, can only go up to about 1,000. I actually wonder if that's transitioning now as there's different shifts going on. I feel like we may be able to actually go higher than that. But he would talk about archangels that would show up at like 10,000, like unfathomable. But, a mere thought from an archangel could instantly create a huge expansion. So I think, again, another amazing tool. And we also open up to those tools as we shift in consciousness. We access those. We're more open to those different possibilities. So guys, absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I love both of you and love the work that you guys are doing. And Tay and I were actually just about ready to come out to your retreat that you guys did almost 2 years ago, because it was after I'd interviewed Dr. Goswami around 2 years ago it was right around Halloween. And then you guys were going to be doing a retreat. It sounded amazing. You're going to different places, and we were all set to go and just figuring out how to handle that with kids and everything. And then everything started to kind of shift shortly after that with all the COVID stuff. So it's coming. We look forward to meeting you both in person at some time soon.
Me too.
Loving us.
Wonderful. My God, you're so beautiful.